Hey guys, Little V here. How do you make a modern metal tone? I was thinking about this morning. Well, still is the morning. I'm still enjoying my wonderful cup of coffee. And I was kind of reflecting on the bias video I made last week, and then I was also reminded of that how do you make a metal tone using Line 6 Pod Farm from like years ago, and it has like 23,000 views now, and honestly that's like 23,000 views more than it should because I was a kid and had no idea what the hell I was talking about. So I figure today we'll talk about the wonders of how do you actually like make a metal guitar tone, and like not so much like what is the tone you should be making, but more of like how you come around it, like how you come about making these tones. And before we jump into this, I should probably like just mention right now that like everyone's favorite tone is going to be different from everyone else's, so what you may enjoy may not be the tone for someone else, and vice versa. And as I get older, the more I like play around with stuff, the more I've come to realize that like my favorite guitar players' tones and bands' tones aren't the tones that work for me. Like, for example, I do enjoy, like, the periphery, like, gent, heavy mid-range kind of, like, you know, but, like, it doesn't really work a lot in my mixes. It tends to, like, muddy up a lot of it because there's a lot of other mid-range happening at the same time. So, anyways, there's basically, like, 4 major components to a metal amp sound. There is the guitar, duh, but, like, specifically the pickups and how many strings it has and tunings. That makes a really big difference on the sound. The amp, once again, duh, but like different amps do give you different sounds. The guitar cabinet and the microphone, depending on if you're using a digital amp sim or like just recording it in a room or for a stage volume. And then the one that's kind of overlooked and no one really talks about, and that's the Overdrive pedal. And that's a pedal you put, it basically boosts your guitar signal going into the amplifier, kind of tightening it up, the term being tightening it up. I'm going to refer to terms here like you're a complete beginner, because if you clicked on this video, it might be because you're a beginner and just don't know where to start. So, I'm going to be using my Line 6 Helix because, as you can see here with the software setup, that's basically what I use. And again, this kind of works for everything, right? This works for analog gear, this works for amp sims, this works for preprocessors and stuff like that, effects processors, right? And so really, like, you know, the sky's the limit, right? So first things first, we have a guitar, right? And I'm using my Jericho Edge, and I have Dove & Townsend Fishman active pickups in it, right? So these are a pickup type that require a battery and have a lot hotter output than you would have with a passive pickup, right? With one of the other guitars I have over here. I'll pull one of these up eventually just to kind of give you the comparison. But basically, this starts off pretty high output, which means you're probably not going to need a lot of gain to begin with. You probably can settle on something a little bit later, right? So first off, let's just grab an amp. And let's do, as you can see, there's quite a few amp choices for the Helix, and let's do, well, I might as well pull up that one I was doing before, right? The one I just did in the intro. So, oh yeah, noise gate. Call that the 5th most important part, because noise gates are really important nowadays too, because if you're using a lot of gain and then pushing that gain even further, it's gonna be a lot of gain. It's going to be a lot of noise. All right. Second, you need a cabinet. I'm going to be using a custom impulse response because, oops, I realized I just did the amp there. Oop, nope, get out of here. Nope. Oh God, it's the morning. Oh no. Blah, blah, blah. Where was it? Crap. There it is. Unedited video. All my mistakes, caught on camera. Normally I do this with the actual, like, physical device, which is right there, or the foot pedal, which is really, really useful. But, you know, again, we'll do it for computer-type stuff. So as you can see, I've got quite a few different cabs. That's definitely the biggest weakness of the Line 6 Helix, is that its onboard cabs kind of suck. So when in doubt, grab yourself a Mesa cabinet and an SM57 microphone, and that starts with this. So first off, we're gonna crank that volume because, you know, hell yeah. Bam. Right. right? So already got a pretty good sound, right? So first thing we want to do is we want to basically stick everything at about noon. And again, this applies for amps, like physical amps, and for any sort of sim, and just kind of play around with it, right? So first off, let's adjust that drive a bit. See, a lot of drive. Kind of makes this fizzy sound, right? So if you go crazy with it, you actually don't want a lot of high gain and high gain, which kind of sounds silly, but like... Like, unless you're going for, like, the doom metal kind of stuff. Like, oh yeah, by the way, here's what it sounds like if you turn off the noise gate now. So, yeah. Noise gate. Real important. So yeah, let's back that down to a more reasonable thing. Let's start at like 3. I've noticed a lot of Line 6 amps, the gain definitely is, you don't need it to be like cranked. On an amp, usually I have it on like noon to 1 o'clock, if you're looking at it like a clock, like the dial. I found on this program, you start a heck of a lot lower. But, I'll program on this effects processor. But of course, you go all the way to, 0, and that's just not going to do. So let's go, go like 3. Now the second most important control is this one, your mid-range. This will have the biggest effect on your sound. Lots of mid-range is going to make your guitar perceived louder. Less mid-range is going to make it seem quieter. Right? So we'll start with a higher mid-range. It's not really what I do, but we'll go like to there. And then next we're going to back that bass off because it's really blowing up the low end. Especially with bass. You gotta be really careful with bass, right? Because when you're using it for stage volume or for recording and stuff, you wanna remember that there is a bass guitar that is filling out that low frequencies. So if you're occupying it with all your bass, it may sound good to you in like a room, but it's gonna sound like butts when it comes to recording or when it comes to playing with a group, right? So we're actually let's kill it all the way to, like, way low on the bass. This is a really bass-heavy amp. Great. Treble, that's your highs, like, any sort of EQ. So treble all the way down. Get a really dark amp. A really scratchy sound. So we want, like, I usually put it around, like, 1 o'clock. Already sounding fantastic. And then presence is kind of like your overall, like, bass treble. Like, it's like a master EQ, if you will. So if it's all the way off, you get this kind of dark, almost, I don't use the term muddy, but like dark tone. And if you go all the way up, really scratchy, right? So again, I kind of aim for like just a bit brighter. Just a little bit brighter. Now you'll notice there's a bunch more settings on this amp or on this program. Don't worry too much about that. This is this right, the big stuff. You can't see the mouse right now, but this stuff right here, it's not really important for the tone and stuff. It's just extra little parameters, like you can choose how the tubes are biased and stuff. But we're not going to worry too much about that. This also has a mid-range boost on this amp, which is really nice for like solo work and stuff. So here it is with it off. If you need like a lead sound, you can just immediately go bam. Which again gives it that real mid-heavy sound, which you hear a lot in the gent stuff. But I found this works great as like a solo boost, and that's one of the reasons why I've been really favoring this amp, is because I need to go lead tone, bam, mid boost on. Need to go rhythm tone, bam, lead boost off. Great. So I'm actually gonna back off those mids again. Let's go like 4. All right. So next piece of the puzzle, that is your cabinet. Right now I am using a Mesa. I'm gonna say it's an oversized cabinet with an SM57. This is from the Conquer All Joey Sturgis Tones pack. The reason I'm using this is because, as I mentioned, if I go to the cabinets built in to this program, not the best. Here's that. We'll go 57. You still get a usable tone, of course. Like it still works. Like it still sounds okay, but like it's not really not really my thing. And even just like with very little playing around, I can just go bam, bam. Where were you? Where were you? There you are. Bam. You know, there's all that low end punch, a little bit less fizzy, right? So the reason why I specifically went for this cab is because this is probably the cab everyone usually goes to for metal. Also, the microphone everyone goes to for metal. And SM57 is just kind of the standard. You get that really like raw in your face sound when it comes to this kind of tone, but like not like it's really mid-range focused, and it's not too bright, it's not too dark. It's kind of like it just works. It's one of those things that works. And of course, we can use other things. Like here's a 421. A little more low mid-range focused and a lot more fizzier at the top. But this one, a little more mid-range focused in the upper mids, and I actually really like the sound of that. And you'll notice a lot of these things have like API and NV next to it. Those are the different boards it was recorded through. Let's do and the 6505 at the start. That's the power amp. That's if it was impulse through like an American style power amp or a British style power amp. So let's go back to our 57. And we're gonna take this one step further. We're gonna, since we are in a digital environment, we are going to mix 2 microphones together. And with this program, it's real simple. You just pull another impulse in or another amp in, and then you just select another one. So classic combo for a lot of this is a 57, and then a 57 on an off axis, which is basically you've got one pointed directly at the microphone, and then you've got, or microphone at the speaker, and then you've got one on an angle, and it sounds like this. And sounds big and monstrous. It's just a classic thing. I'm not a scientist. I'm not exactly sure I know how it works, but it just makes it work. Another good combo is a 57 and a 421 together. It gives you a good sound like that. Bear in mind, this microphone stuff only really applies to you if you're miking an amp. If you're just getting a metal sound in a room for your own enjoyment or for a stage, not really a thing you need to worry too much about. More just which cabinet you're using, and we'll get to that in a second. And then just for funsies, let's use that 906 from earlier, along with the 57. Sounds really good. Sounds freaking awesome with that. All right, so your next bit, your secret sauce here, your overdrive. And we're going to use the overdrive that everyone uses. literally everyone uses, which is called a tube screamer. It's that big green one you always see. Typically, this is how it's set up. No gain, all level, and then like tone to season to taste. And boom, you have your instant metal sound. What the overdrive is doing, as I mentioned, is it's taking the signal from the guitar and pushing it harder into the amplifier, which makes the amp work just a bit harder without having to actually increase the gain. And what it does is it ends up kind of taking all that low-end flubness and just kind of going meep, and just focusing it a bit more. And then depending on where you have your tone set, you can really affect the pick attack. And it also kind of adds in some more mid-range, again, with that really mid-heavy tone that everyone's going after right now, right? So, like, if I was to max that and then back off the mids, like, to, I don't know, like something stupid. You'll notice I've still got a lot of mids, so let's just go. Turn that off, and now my mids are kind of gone, right? So this is kind of ending up like boosting a scooped amp, bringing back some of those mids. So there's that. Now, other things that can go into play. By the way, again, with the noise gate, yeah, real noisy. So we're going to put that back on. Now, other things that'll affect the sound drastically is the cabinet you're using, right? So let's, just for funsies, let's go back just to the amp. So no boosted amp, just the amp for a second to kind of get the pure sound, right? And your cabinet makes a huge difference. So here's a Marshall style cabinet, and we're just going to remove that for a minute. Cut that. Bye. And here's a Marshall. Right? As opposed to a Mesa, which is... So notice immediately it's smoother in the top end, and again, a bit more mid-focused. Where was it here? Right there. It's got a different type of high end to it, you know? It kind of pokes up on different frequencies. So, and again, grab boost. So yeah, lots of mid-range in that one. And then again, playing around with the different types of amp or different types of microphones, you get different effects, right? So these are 421. So if you like a high end that'll take your ear off, or take your head off rather. There's that. And this. And then before, like I said, mixing different microphones will give you different sounds. So let's pull up that one again. And boop-a-doop-a-doop-a-doop. You'll notice I have a lot more different impulses. I'll get to those in a second. Bam and a bam. Now, a thing to note, if you are recording an amp, a live amp in a room with microphones, two big things you got to worry about, and that is proximity effect, and that is how close the microphone is to the amp will actually increase and decrease the bass. The closer it is, the more bass you'll get, and the further away, the more of like the mic sound you'll get. So if you are having a problem with too much bass, on top of turning the actual bass down on the amp, back the microphone a bit. And then you also have to worry about phasing. So basically how sound works is you got a sine wave, right? And you want to make sure that the signal from both microphones are like lined up together and not like fancy terms for saying that play around with your mic placement so you don't get this weird like canceling out of frequencies. And yeah, all right, bam. And let's go here, and then let's go here. So like that with that, you can kind of hear what I mean with the canceling out of frequencies. Creates a cool sound, but not the sound we're looking for. Let's try the 421 again. Not bad. How about the 257s together? Bam. And yeah, I still got that. Still got that. Good. And then mix in this again. Back that tone off because I don't usually put it there. I usually put it here. Right? So real chunky, real heavy. Actually, I really actually like that. Learning something new every day. I might actually use this combo for a little bit. That's another thing too, right? As you play more, your tastes will change. And the tones you like will kind of adapt, right? So that's why I said at the start of this video, experiment. It's like your tone won't be the same that everyone else likes. All right, so that's almost gig ready. One more thing we're going to do, really simple. We're just going to add, actually we'll put here, a reverb. Make it sound like it's in a big hall or in a room. Because that's the problem when you're dealing with recordings and stuff, and and dealing with digital amp stuff, is you get a really dry signal, and sometimes all you need is just a little bit of a room. If I was recording this into like an actual like song, I would keep it completely dry. But for just noodling around and playing around, and for like an actual like live tone, definitely putting in a reverb. Not a lot, just a little bit. All right, and then usually what I'll do, myself personally, for a lead type tone, so more of the wheedly wheedlies, less of the chugga chuggas, to give that mid boost. And as I mentioned, with the extra mid, you perceive it as louder, but it also fills out the sonic range a little bit more. I like to add a delay. And I believe I can add it in a stereo format. Make it trippy. Just for funsies, I'll just make a simple delay. Or a vintage. So we could sit here. It's distorting as it's a little loud. We could sit here and play with delays all day. Make it simple. We'll just go mono because most of the stuff, yeah, right down the middle. We could play with. We could do a whole episode on effects, but like God, there's so many effects. But just something simple. Let's just go with a tape delay and put it at like 22%. So on and so forth. So, yeah. And then, of course, you can go crazy with these. One of my favorite things about Line 6 is the fact that their effects are nuts, and I love it. Here's a cave. Did you want to play guitar in a cave? Here you go. But yeah, as you can hear, that goes on forever. So yeah, all right. So let's just clear all this and let's do a different amp altogether, different settings altogether, just to kind of show you the different varieties, right? So that was based off of a meteor, an angle meteor, is what that patch was based off of, right? So let's switch over to well, the two big ones are a 5150 and a oh my God, dual rectifier. So let's go with the dual rec. Why not? The dual rec needs some work in this program because the basic preset it loads on sucks, especially when you include the the cab that's supposed to go with it. Boy, it sucks. So Mesa with Mesa, nice and simple, you know, nice and simple. And for funsies, we'll use the Neve preamp on this one. Boy, that sounds fantastic, doesn't it? It's so metal. It's gonna be so metal. Here, let's turn up the sound of that metal, man. It's gonna be so good. Let's go bam. Oh, no, that's the wrong one. I want channel volume. Bam. Let's go to like there. So this one needs some work, as you can definitely hear. So once again, I'm just gonna kind of skip through this because I know what this amp needs. We're gonna crank that gain up a lot. Back the bass down a lot. That's kind of interfering with a lot of the frequencies. Back the mids down a lot too. Bring the treble up a bit. Bring the presence up a bit. That's closer to an actual Mesa. So, this amp specifically definitely benefits a lot to being boosted. Gives you a very much more tight. I can't talk. Much tighter sound. And just for funsies, we'll do this, and I'll show you a different overdrive just for funsies, because there's obviously more than one type of overdrive. Etc. So there's your Mesa. There's the Mesa tone that everyone always wants. Love this tone. Honestly, I really like the sound of Mesa dual rectifiers. Always have. But personally, on their own, without a boost, a little muddy for me. And then once again, this can really benefit from different cab options. So just for funsies, let's go to a different cab altogether. This is from, I want to say, Rosen Digital. That's way too loud. Let's back that down. Sorry, it's probably distorting on your guys' end. I apologize. Please. Oh, excuse me. Unedited. Fully unedited. Live. Right, so I really like the Carvin amps, but they are very bass, well, this Carvin Legacy, at least, in the Rosen stuff. They're real bass heavy. And here is, I want to say this is Owen Hammer. This is Houston Kettner. So as you can hear, lots of different options. Cabs make a huge difference on an actual tone. So really important to not let your biases come through and just use different cabinets. Experiment. If you can. If you only have like the one amp and the one cab, you'd be surprised how well you can make it work. Obviously, having an actual physical piece of gear in your room, and if you're miking it up, you got a lot more tonal options than an impulse response or a cab sim will give you, just due to the fact that you can put the microphone basically wherever the hell you want, and even just like an inch on a like moving a microphone an inch can make such a big difference. So, right, too trusty. Nope, definitely don't want that. In the patch there was running a cab into another cab. We don't want that. So the two 57s, really loud out fizzy high end. So let's try this one. Nope, that's the wrong amp. That's two different cabs. You can also do that too. You can also have two different cabs, but again, now we're talking a lot of money, and that's stupid. That sounds pretty great, but again, pretty bass heavy. Again, sounds pretty good, but a lot of treble, so let's back that up. So, lots of tonal options for that kind of stuff, right? So, and again, just add ourselves a reverb. Where the heck is it here? Room, just basic room. Or a hall, rather. Or a room, why not? Try a room, different one. Etc. So, let's check this up here a little bit. We're going to, real quick, I'm going to just change that to, can I do this without blowing up your guys' ears? I don't know if I can. So, watch your ears for a second. Let's switch this up to a different guitar, with different pickups, and a different tuning, and all that stuff. So this is baritone. It's got JB and a jazz, I believe. Assuming like a JB and a jazz passive pickups. So the output is a lot lower. And just for funsies, if you go boop 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 boop. Lots of flub 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 on that one. So this one definitely benefits a lot more from a lot more gain and a lot more of that. So as you can see, no two guitars going into an amp are going to sound the same, right? Stop it. No two guitars will sound the same. So your guitar does actually have a big impact on your tone, right? So for funsies, let's go one more time. Let's make one more amp because this video is going to get real long. I can already see it. I'm looking at like 30 minutes plus here. But, you know, something fun to watch and throw in the background while you're doing something else. Let's go with a Marshall type sound. Let's go with something I never experiment with. Here we go. There's a JCM 800. Well, JCM 800, can't legally call it that. And then where's that Marshall cab I had? Bam. I should also probably mention that these Marshall impulses are all 4 12s. So they are 4 12-inch speakers as opposed to like a 2 12-inch speaker configuration, etc. So first thing we need to do is crank that gain because it is and back that bass off. You'll notice with a lot of extended range guitars and 7 strings and anything where you have to go tune really low, bass you want to back right the hell off in general. Bring those mids back in. Great. Now we're gonna boost it, but for funsies, let's use a different one. Let's use the distortion or the Boss Overdrive. I'm actually gonna bring some disc drive back So, sounds great for like a more British style sound, but definitely with that extra You get real flubby, real loose with that low end. So one more time. Let's go. Let's just do something weird. Let's do yeah, let's do the Archon, PRS Archon. Alright, that sounds much better. More to my liking. Nice, and we're still in like a British type of cabinet. So let's go with one of the big advantages of having software is the fact that you can just switch up the software. Whereas if you wanted to do this with actual physical amps, boy, this would be expensive. Sounds interesting, but yeah, definitely a phasing issue there. So let's go with there we go. Nice. And then just for funsies, let's go back to the Mesa. Nope, that's not the right cabinet. Bam. Real low mid focus. Let's go with something like that. Nice, nice. All right, bam. Back to the hall. For that lick, of course. Etc. So yeah, basic things are your amp, your cabinet, your overdrive pedal, and your guitar are going to make probably the biggest differences. Oh, and the noise gate, very important, noise gate for your different type of gear, right? So go back to the screen. That's kind of how at least how I build a modern metal tone, is find a good amp and cab, put an overdrive in front of it, and then play around with different mics and play around with different licks and see what I like with it. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that. And it was a long video. I'm staring at the recording time right now is currently 43 minutes, although it's probably a little bit shorter because I had some outtakes at the start. Yeah, and yeah, hopefully you guys got a good starting point for the kind of tones you're looking for, and for kind of just experimentation and stuff. And even just, as you can see, playing around with different sounds, you can come up with some new sounds that honestly you never really thought you wanted. Honestly, I'm not a big fan of Mesa cabinets, but I got a lot of really cool sounding stuff with a Mesa cabinet, right? So anyways, rock on. Peace out. We'll see you next week.